back, everybody, to What I Watched This Week with Alec. My name is Alec. Today we're going to talk about The Running Man 2025, Apocalypto, and Enemy at the Gates. Now, full disclosure, this is actually take 2 of this. I sat down to record this a couple of days ago, and I recorded the entire episode, talked about all 3 of the movies, and then I got up and there was an issue with the recording, and cool, I've got to do it all over again. So at some point I might get up just because now I'm paranoid about the whole thing. I think I fixed the problem, but I'm a little paranoid about it, so I might actually get up and check the camera. I'll cut it out, but yeah, take 2. Here we go. Only the second episode, and we already have a lost episode that I'm going to try to re-record right now. So before we get started on talking about the movies, we've got our physical media minute. So I'm going to show you some of my most recent physical media pickups. There's a thrift store right around the corner from my apartment. It's a Salvation Army, I think. And no, it's a youth ranch. Anyway, they were having 4 for $1 DVDs. That's right, 25 cents a pop for these puppies. So I was browsing, trying to find the 4 that I really, really wanted, and here's what I got. The first one is a movie that we're going to talk about a little bit later in this episode, Enemy at the Gates. This movie's really sick. I'll talk more about it in detail. I got Hostels, starring Christian Bale, Rosamund Pike, Wes Studi. This is a movie that I have heard recommended several times on other podcasts that I listen to. Christian Bale obviously is always going to give you a good performance. I heard that Timothée Chalamet is in this, and that's one of the things that kind of turned me on to it. I was like, oh, I need to check out Hostels at some point. I've been a bigger fan of Timothée Chalamet because of Marty Supreme and some other things that I kind of dig the guy. I dig his performances. I heard he has a good one in this, so I'm going to check this out. And even if he's not in it, if I'm thinking of the wrong movie, Christian Bale never disappoints. The next one, the Ghost Rider collection. So Ghost Rider and Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance, the 2 Nicolas Cage movies. My little brother Ricky, he is a huge Ghost Rider fan. It's his favorite comic book character, or one of them. And the other day he was like, I haven't actually seen either of the Ghost Rider movies. So we're going to watch this. Are these great movies? No, but we're going to have a good time watching it. See some Nicolas Cage freakouts. Can't go wrong. The last one, 3:10 to Yuma, another Christian Bale movie, another Christian Bale Western, actually, also with Russell Crowe. This movie rocks. This is a great movie. I couldn't believe that I didn't have it on my shelf. I saw it on the shelf at the thrift store, and I checked my little list, my little log that I have, and I was like, oh shoot, I don't have a copy of 3:10 to Yuma. Gotta have a copy of 3:10 to Yuma. And then my last little physical media, or physical whatever, today's episode is brought to you by The Bride, starring, I forget her name, but that also has Christian Bale in it. The only reason I have this is because I went to the movie theater a couple of months ago, and I was like, could I have a medium popcorn and a medium Pepsi Zero, please? And they're like, hey, we'll give you a promotional cup that you can bring in for refills. And I was like, cool. And they hand me this, and I was like, you don't have a promotional cup for a different movie, do you? And they're like, nope, just The Bride. I was like, okay, whatever. So our hydration breaks are brought to you by The Bride. I haven't seen it. My wife watched it on HBO or something like that. She said it was pretty silly, not a great movie. Let's jump right in. First, we're going to talk about The Running Man 2025. Now, I am a big fan of The Running Man from the 80s with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Who isn't? That would be, if I was like, hey, have you seen The Running Man from the 80s with Schwarzenegger? And someone said, yeah, I don't really like that movie. I would think less of that person, probably. Not that it's like a masterpiece or anything, but it's one of those fun sci-fi 80s movies with Arnold. Speaking of, what a generational run Arnold went on in that span with sci-fi. Just with sci-fi. He did other action movies, but we're talking Terminator, The Running Man, Total Recall, Predator. Golly. Is Arnold Schwarzenegger the king of sci-fi? We might need to have a conversation about that. Anyway, I'm a big fan of that movie. So when I heard that they were going to remake The Running Man, I was stoked about it. I was like, I I have a little bit of a phobia, or a little bit of like a, I don't love all the remakes that have come out. They're not usually that good. But The Running Man is one of those ones that I think, yeah, cyclically, it makes sense to kind of jump on that one, especially because I hear that they're going to go closer to the book. Now, I hadn't read the book at the time, so I hear that the remake is going to happen, and I'm like, you know what, let's read the book. And when I say read, I mean listen. I don't hardly read books ever anymore. I'm going to do a quick check, make sure we're recording. Okay, we're good to go. Before I get too deep into this, let's make sure that we're actually recording. When I say I read the book, I mean listen. I don't hardly read books anymore. And luckily, Spotify had that as one of the audiobook options, so I listened to The Running Man by Stephen King. By the way, he goes by like a pseudonym for that one. He doesn't go by, he has like this alternate author, mentality, personality, whatever that he went with. He has I think pseudonym is the right word, but anyway, The Running Man by Stephen King. The book is substantially different than the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. And so when I read the book, I was like, cool, like this is barely a remake, it really is going to be an adaptation of the book. And so even though it's technically under that kind of remake umbrella, it's going to be a completely new experience. So I'm excited about that. And then I hear that Edgar Wright is attached to direct it. I'm like, oh, shoot. Hot Fuzz, Scott Pilgrim, Baby Driver, great director, stylish director. This is going to be a fun time. The Running Man adaptation of the book with Edgar Wright, that's going to be sick. So here's what happens. I'm anticipating the movie coming out. I plan on going to see it in theaters. I think it was this movie and then Predator Badlands were coming out at about the same time at the end of 2025, and I was like, I'm going to go see both of them in theater for sure. If I'm remembering correctly, Badlands came out a little bit earlier. I went and saw that, and then for whatever reason, The Running Man just slipped under my radar, and I didn't go to the theater to see it. And that's probably because movies are only in the theater unless they make a ton of money right away. Movies are only in the theater. There's someone out my window. I wonder who that is. Anyway, movies are only in the theater for like 2.5 weeks. And if they don't make $1 bazillion in that 2.5 weeks, then they just shuck them out. So I didn't go see The Running Man in theater. I didn't hear that it was great. My wife just got home from jury duty, so that's who that was rolling. Sorry, I had to pause for a second. Yeah, so I didn't go see this movie in theaters, even though I kind of wanted to. I didn't hear great things about it. I heard that it was kind of underwhelming. And so fast forward, maybe almost a year now, I'm scrolling through and I'm like, oh shoot, The Running Man 2025 is on Prime Video on Amazon, and it's free and I don't have to pay for it. Let's go ahead and watch it. So I flick it on. And I have to concur with what I heard. This movie was a bit underwhelming. It is by no means as good as the Running Man from the 80s. If you have to pick one, obviously you go with that one. I have a couple of beefs with this movie, so let me just go ahead and jump into it. Let's rip this Band-Aid off. Glen Powell, our leading man, I don't want to say that he's a bad actor because I haven't seen a lot from him. I've seen clips of him. This is really like one of the only movies that I've seen and I've gotten a good sample size of him. This performance stinks by Glen Powell. And it's a big bummer. And there's two things that I think are working against him. Number one, and let me say this about Glen Powell. Handsome dude, charismatic, seems to be a really nice, cool dude. He is everything that you want in your leading man, in your star. I just don't think that he has the chops, and that's what you need the most from your leading man is the chops, right? Ben Richards, Glen Powell's character, this main guy, he is an angry man. And that's, directly from the book, he's a guy that's been kicked around by society and by everything, and he's very angry. And you can tell that Glen Powell, his Ben Richards, is angry because he's doing this the entire movie. He's making an angry face the entire movie, and people continue to tell him, "Man, you're so angry." It always seems like Glen Powell is acting angry and isn't actually angry. Now, I'm not a pro actor. I don't know where the disconnect between acting angry and actually like being angry or, portraying angry really comes. Glen Powell seems to be stuck in that gap between, the great actors who are just angry on screen and him who's acting angry. You can tell that he's putting it on in just about every single scene, and it's not great. The other thing, and this is the other thing that I think is working against Glen Powell in this movie, I would blame his performance a little bit, but I would also blame some of the writing, is this movie continues to explain itself over and over and over. The opening scene, is him trying to get money, trying to get his job back so that he can pay for his little girl's, his, darling baby girl's medical bills. And he's like, I need this job. And they're like, you can't have this job. And he's like, but I need this job. Look at the baby. And they're like, but you can't have the job. And then he goes home and he's watching TV and he's like, man, I need money for my baby. And then his wife comes home and she's like, we need money for the baby. And he's like, I know we need money for the baby. And it just like we continue to re-explain ourselves over and over and over. And then, we get into the idea of the Running Man and the television and the network. And they have these different reality TV shows to help you win money. And we get the Running Man explained to us for the first time through, a montage, a TV trailer. And then he's like, I've got to go get the money at all costs. And his wife is like, well, we need the money, but not at all costs. And he's like, yes, but at all costs. It's so exposition heavy in a movie that does not need it. We as the audience, we know what a post-apocalyptic dystopian future is. We know, especially if you've seen the original Running Man, we know that. We know that, big corporation is bad and, little man living in the slums is good. Like, we as an audience, we already understand all of that cinematic shorthand. I don't know if that's a term. That's what I call it, cinematic shorthand. This movie can just show us if it wanted to, but it continues to tell us over and over and over. There's that phrase, show, don't tell, that you would hear any movie nerd or critic or an analyst, whatever, they would say that. This movie can just, it should just drop us into this world, expose us to it, and then get to it. It has all of the necessary building blocks to just show us and not tell us, but it consistently and constantly wants to keep telling us what's happening. Ben Richards goes to the network and he starts to do his auditions, and we get the Running Man explained to us again, and then he gets casted, and then Coleman Domingo comes out and he's like, let me explain to you the rules of the Running Man. And it's like, we've already had this explained to us. And then to make matters worse, we get halfway through the movie. Ben Richards has already been on the run for half the movie, and he finds this family. They're sympathetic to him. They take him in. They don't want to turn him in the way that the rest of society does. And then that guy explains the game to us again. And he frames it in his revolutionary, that little kind of revolution subplot that I'm not even sure needs to be in the movie at all. We have the game explained to us again. And I'm like, guys, we get it. We understand what the Running Man is as the audience. Just drop us in this world and let us have fun with it. You don't need to constantly explain it to us. And I think that that's one of those things that like made this movie, it hurt the actors in it. It hurt Glen Powell. If your leading man who is already having trouble grasping the angry part of his character also has to continually give us exposition, that's just like a recipe for a bad performance. Coleman Domingo is good. Josh Brolin is good. William H. Macy is good. I'm not exactly sure why William H. Macy's in this movie. I think that's one of those scenes that you can cut out completely, and I hate to say that because I really like William H. Macy. But when we have to continually explain the plot and explain the game, let's just start cutting that stuff out before you know it. Instead of a movie that's what, an hour and 2 hours and 10 minutes, we've got a movie that's 1 hour and 50 minutes, and that's substantially, that helps a lot. I think that this movie might have anywhere from 20 plus minutes of stuff we don't need. I know that the family in the middle that's sympathetic in this revolutionary idea, that's integral to the book, but I don't really think it needs to be in the movie. Especially because here's the other thing that I think is going on with Ben Richards' character is that this movie has kind of an identity crisis. It doesn't really know what it wants to be. Is this a movie about a man who's taking revenge for the wrongs done to him? Or is this a movie about a man who is going to revolutionize against the system? And the revolutions part of it seems to be this subplot that doesn't actually match with Ben Richards' character. And so when you have to shoehorn that in and make him go, oh yeah, I'm an angry guy who just wants to get the money for my daughter, but also I'm sympathetic to all of the people and I am the hero of the revolution. It's shoehorn is the best way I can describe it. It meanders and it never really cements itself because it's trying to do both things at one time. It doesn't do either of them super duper well. And that's a big bummer. The other big bummer that I have with this is we don't really get the Edgar Wright signature on this movie. We get small flashes of it where you can go, oh, hey, I can see that, I see a little bit of Hot Fuzz in this, or I see a little bit of Scott Pilgrim in this, or Baby Driver. It never really fully gets into that. And at the end of it, I was like, dang, if I didn't know Edgar Wright directed this, I wouldn't have even guessed that he directed it. And that's a missed opportunity. If you're going to have Edgar Wright direct your movie, give him the reins, man. Let him do what he's supposed to do. Missed opportunity there. So, The Running Man. It's a fun time. If you have Amazon Prime Video and you can watch it for free on top of your subscription, you don't have to pay for it. Go for it. Yeah, that's great. I can't believe that I'm promoting the streaming idea, but you know what I mean. If you, that's the world we live in. If you want to watch it, go for it. Especially if you're a fan. If you're a fan of the book, if you're a fan of the old movie, this is not going to be a waste of time. You'll have a good time watching this movie. You're not going to have an amazing experience that you I don't want to rewatch this movie the way that I want to rewatch The Running Man if it comes on TV and I'm like, oh shoot, yeah, we're watching The Running Man with Arnold. It doesn't quite have that. So, yeah, I think that's what I want to say on The Running Man. Moving on, Apocalypto, directed by Mel Gibson, from 2006. I don't want to bury the lead here. I'm going to be fully transparent. This movie is freaking incredible. This movie is amazing. I don't want to throw around the M word on this series, masterpiece, but this freaking might well be a masterpiece. I don't know how this movie isn't talked about all the time. I think it's because it was directed by Mel Gibson, Mad Max himself, and especially at this time, I think he might have been in a little bit of director's jail. He said some things you're not supposed to say, so I'm sure that has something to do with it. But Apocalypto is one of the coolest movies I've ever seen, and it was a first-time watch for me. And it's one of those movies that I've seen clips of. I've seen the opening maybe 15 minutes and then never really got into it. I finally sat down and watched it, and holy moly, I've been missing out. And if you haven't seen this movie, you're missing out, and you got to watch it. Now, one caveat before I can recommend it to people, and anybody who's seen it knows, this movie is freaking brutal. This movie is gory, gnarly. It is a movie that really is about the brutality of man and the brutality of the people who existed in this time frame, in this area. So if you have a little bit of a hard time with blood and guts and especially Blood and Guts that like takes it to another level where it's not just, sensational gore. It's like gore that like serves a purpose to show this brutality. That might be a little bit too much for you. So a caveat there. Let me set the stage. I'm kind of talking around it now. Apocalypto is about a tribe in what I would guess to be, 1400, 1500s. We're talking the jungles of South America. And it follows specifically this young tribesman. His name is Jaguar's Paw. And he lives in this tribe, and they're a hunting tribe, a peaceful tribe. You really get to see what tribe life is all about. And all of a sudden, a conquering set of other tribes people come in and just basically wipe out his peaceful tribe. They come in, they kill anybody who resists, they kill women, they kill children, and then they essentially take Jaguar's Paw and some of his other able-bodied men, and they bind them up, and they are trudging through the jungle to who knows where. Jaguar's Paw, luckily, is able to hide his wife and child and her unborn baby in this pit. And so the idea that you're set up with is Jaguar's Paw is now being trudged across the jungle to who knows where, but at some point he's going to have to get back to his family and save them. That's what we're set up with. And it freaking pays off. That's the setup. Now, I'm going to say this, part of the M-word masterpiece discussion that I would make for this movie is that this is one of the most unique movies I have ever seen. And I don't necessarily mean unique as far as plot. The plot that I just described to you, it's a man loses everything and man has to get it back. That's a plot line that is tale as old as time. We know exactly that plot. We've seen it 100 times. What's unique about this movie is that we live with this tribe, and they're speaking Mayan, I believe it is, the entire movie. This is a slice of life, or whatever you want to call it, of a set of people that have really never ever been represented in movies. We have plenty of Native American movies. We have Last of the Mohicans, Hostiles that I have right there. I think that's a Native American story, but I'm talking a purely Native American story. There are no white people in this movie. There are no honkies in this movie whatsoever, except for a little bit at the end, but I'm not going to talk about that. That's something that you'll just experience when you watch it. We are completely dropped into this world that we, as an audience, have hardly, if at all, any exposure to. And we get to experience what life was like, what life could have been like for somebody like this, and there are no outside influences. And I'm not saying that putting white people in your Native American movie is a bad thing, but once you do that, right, we've got these influences that kind of reattach, someone like me in the modern world to it, right? There are no attachments in this movie for someone like me who is a modern person and doesn't see, like someone with, when I watch The Last of the Mohicans, right, I can somehow kind of attach myself to the Europeans in that movie because that's where my history lies, right? Like I have even if it's very, very distant, I have an into that movie. There's no such in Apocalypto. It is completely siloed. And siloed may not be the right word. I'm trying to think of the word that I'm looking for. But I think you understand what I'm saying. This story belongs to this guy and this people and nobody else. There are no outside influences. And that allows us to do some really amazing things. I'm not gonna give too much away about the journey that they go to, but at some point, Jaguar's Paw and the other people, they get to experience. They've been living in sticks and mud huts, and at a certain point in the movie, they experience the Aztec, Mayan, Mesopotamia. Is it Mesopotamia? Mesopotamia is on the other side of the world. Anyway, the Mayan Aztec temple, right? The stone masoned temple and marketplaces and these vibrant colors that describe this world that we've only ever seen in paintings or, whatever, right? And he experiences it for the first time, seeing this like brutal majesty of what these people have built and the, ritualistic aspects of it that he's never experienced, we've never experienced. And it is, majestic sounds like kind of a fruity word to say for it, but that's like really the only word it is spectacular what he experiences and what we experience in this movie. Whoever worked on the sets and the art design and they deserve all of the Oscars. I don't know if awards and I'm on the Wikipedia page. Good gracious. Nominated for Best Makeup, Best Sound Editing, Best Sound Mixing, didn't win a single one of them. And no nominations for set design or art direction or anything like that. That has to be, right? That has to be the whole Mel Gibson is in director's jail and people don't really like him, because whoever worked on the sets and the art and the makeup, they all the Oscars need to go to those people. That's crazy that this didn't come away with any Oscars. And we also get amazing performances from the guy who plays Jaguar's Paw and the other people in this movie. Now, what I really want to talk about, my favorite part of this movie, after we've experienced all this stuff that we've never experienced before, we get the chase, right? I'm not going to get into the detail of it, but Jaguar's Paw is able to escape from his captors, and now it is a chase through the jungle to get back to his wife and children to make sure that they're safe. Now, of course, on his way out, he kills someone who just happens to be the son of the warrior chief that has decimated his people. So he's running through the jungle, and then and he is being chased by this angry general and his troops. They don't want to let him get away after murdering his son. And this third act chase is really only like the last maybe half hour of this movie. What's the runtime of this guy? 138 minutes. So yeah, an hour and 18 minutes. Maybe that last 38 minutes is the chase. And it is freaking awesome. The artsy-fartsy part of me really loves the second act, and then the high-octane masculine part of me loves the third act. We see jaguars, we see poison frogs, we see cobras and snakes. We get every piece of the jungle that has kind of been held from us that you would expect to see. We get all of it in this third act. And my favorite part, bar none, Jaguar's Paw is trying to escape. He jumps over this cliff, over this kind of clearing, not knowing. He lands in quicksand, and he's gonna die. But by sheer willpower, he pulls himself out of this quicksand mud pit, and he's covered in mud. And he takes this breather, and he looks around him, and we just see over his shoulder, we see the back of him. And he says to himself, "My name is Jaguar's Paw. I hunted these jungles with my father. I will hunt them with my children, and my children will hunt them with their children after I am gone." And he turns around, and you see this look in his eye, and dude, the actor who plays Jaguar's Paw, I can't believe that he didn't become an overnight star. He should be in everything. I got to give him a shout out. Let me see if I can get to cast really, really fast. Rudy Youngblood as Jaguar's Paw. Rudy Youngblood, you are the freaking man, dude. Your performance rocks. And essentially, in that little speech he gives, he goes, "I'm not running anymore. I know I have to go save my children and my wife, but it's time for the hunted to be the hunter." And he freaking starts Ramboing these dudes, taking them out one by one. And it is pure, high-octane, masculine, hell yeah cinema. This is so silly. Back when I was a kid in maybe 2006, 2007, 8, something like that, they came out with a Peter Pan movie, as they do every 25 years. They come out with a new Peter Pan. This one, I don't remember the kid who plays Peter Pan. I just know he was in the Sasquatch gang. There's a deep cut for anybody. Captain Hook was played by Jason Isaacs. And before the third act of that movie starts, Peter Pan has just saved Tinkerbell from the poison that she drank, and Captain Hook has kidnapped the Lost Boys and Wendy, Michael, and John, and Peter's like, it's time to go get them. Tinkerbell flicks the sword into Peter Pan's hand, and he looks at the sword, and he looks up, and he goes, it's Hook or me this time. Let's freaking go. It's Hook or me this time. And as a 9-year-old or whatever the heck I was at the time, I just even as a child, I was like, yes, this is exactly why I love movies. And Jaguar's Paw has this it's Hook or me this time moment, and that might be my chef's kiss. My favorite moment of any movie is the it's Hook or me this time moment. And Jaguar's Paw definitely has this moment. I'm not going to spoil how this ends, but there is this idea of actually, I'm not going to get into that. I'm going to let you watch the movie, and I'm going to let you see it for yourself. Apocalypto, like I said, I don't want to throw around the M word too much, masterpiece, but this very well might be a masterpiece. It is one of the coolest movies I've seen in a while. Quick check to make sure we're recording before we get into this last one. Don't want to let happen what happened last time. Mel Gibson, Mad Max himself. Well done, buddy. This is an amazing movie. Finishing it up with Enemy at the Gates. This is one of the physical media pieces that I picked up at the thrift store. Enemy at the Gates is one of those movies that I've seen bits and pieces of it. I know that it's one of those ones that's been on the background. I've seen it. I wasn't sure that I had seen it all the way through, and so it was like, okay, now that I've got it, let's watch it. Enemy at the Gates is a World War II drama directed by Jean-Jacques Annaud, which is a guy that I don't really know of. I don't know if he has anything else that we would know him from. But essentially, this is Stalingrad the movie. I think in other countries it is just called Stalingrad. I'm sure if this movie was made today, it would just be called Stalingrad. And it follows Jude Law. Let me set it up for you. So Jude Law is one of these young Russian men who is basically forced to volunteer for the Russian war efforts in World War II. And at the beginning of the movie, he is stuck on a train and he is sent to Stalingrad. And Stalingrad is like this last kind of checkpoint. The Germans are trying to move in to the heart of Russia and take it. And if they take Stalingrad, they basically have like a freeway into Moscow or whatever, the western part of Russia, to take it over. So the Russians must hold Stalingrad, and if they can't hold Stalingrad, the war is over for them. Which is already kind of a weird place to be in. I don't find myself rooting for the Russians very often in a movie. As an American man, we don't root for the Russians very often in the movie. But if it's Russians versus Nazis, we take the Russians. So we're on the Russian side in this movie. And Jude Law, what we don't know about him at the very beginning is that he is this farm boy who has been raised on rifles, and he is an expert marksman. So we have this opening scene of him arriving at Stalingrad. I'll explain that opening scene in just a minute a little bit more here. But he has this moment where, in the quiet of the next morning, he caps like 6 Nazis. Just bop bop, bop bop, bop bop. He just mows down these 6 Nazis with his expert riflesman, his expert marksman training. And Joseph Fiennes, our other kind of co-star in this movie, sees it and says, oh shoot, I know what to do. Turns out Joseph Fiennes, his name is, Vasily is Jude Law, and Joseph Fiennes plays his best buddy Danilov. So Danilov says, oh, I know what to do with this. we need to propagandize Vasily, the great hunter, right? So he turns Vasily, he's a political officer, he's not actually a soldier. He turns Vasily into this great, essentially modern day, for the time, Russian folk hero. Vasily the hunter, a small farm town boy who is now the greatest weapon we have against the Nazis who are coming down on us. Right, to galvanize the Russian people and make them believe in the war effort. So all is good and well until the Germans realize, the Russians are galvanizing. We have to put a stop to this. So what do? They bring in their own expert marksman, played by Ed Woods, who is always good, dude. Ed Woods has never been ungood. So Ed Woods plays Major Koenig. So Major Koenig comes in and he is basically tasked, you are to hunt down and take out Vasily, put this folk hero to rest so that the Russian spirit will be broken. So the movie develops into this cat and mouse hunt between Major Koenig, the Nazi, and Vasily, our hero, Russian hunter. And it's freaking sweet. Again, just a very masculine, high-octane, high-tension, easy, entertaining, dope freaking movie. This movie's really awesome. And in the middle of it, obviously, you have Rachel Weisz plays this love interest that kind of creates this triangle between her and Danilov and Vasily. So you've got this love story happening in the middle of it. It's a really sweet movie. And also, before I tell you my favorite part of the movie, got to shout out Ron Perlman. Ron Perlman shows up as another marksman, and he gives Vasily some tips and tricks. And he's only in the movie for like a little bit, but he freaking steals the show. He's awesome in this movie. Okay, let me talk about my favorite part of the movie. And that might be the only part that I even talk about. And I'll let you watch the rest of it. Like I said, we open on Vasily is in this train, and he is being shipped with many, many other Russian youth to fight at Stalingrad. And meanwhile, you've got generals on, megaphones, and I guess at the time it was just like a cheerleading megaphone, basically screaming propaganda at them. You're doing this for the motherland, and you are protecting the wives and children and your mothers back home. You are heroes, right? And the train doors open, and we get this close-up of Jude Vasily just looking at Stalingrad. And it goes from Vasily's point of view to all the other dudes on the train. And you see this look of absolute terror. Whatever they're looking at is horrifying. And it is abysmal. And they don't want to get off the train. Now, what is amazing about this moment is that we spend the next 2.5 minutes just seeing these dudes be we don't see the flip side. We don't see Stalingrad. We see what the boys are seeing. We see the boys' faces, sorry. And they are scared out of their minds. Whatever they're looking at is the edge of hell. This is not going to be good. And the camera holds on those boys for a long time, kind of a long time. Usually you only get that reaction shot and then you see what they're seeing right away. The director, the cinematographer of this movie didn't do that. They held on the boys for a while, and you see their apprehension and you see their terror, and some of them don't want to get off the train. And of course, the Russian generals are throwing them off the train, and they're like, Russia has no room for cowards. You have to go. And after what seems like a really long time of only seeing the reactions, it finally swaps and we see Stalingrad under siege. And it is as scary and as brutal as the reactions make it look. That is like chef's kiss cinema right there. Because like I said, I think any other movie would like show Stalingrad and then show their reactions, or it would show their reactions and very quickly show us Stalingrad. But holding on the boys, these young men's reactions, I think is like a stroke of genius for this movie. Because we as an audience are like, what are they seeing? That's so terrifying. Like, what are they seeing? Like, we are kind of left in this apprehension for a second. And essentially after that, it turns into Saving Private Ryan for Russians. It is D-Day, but for Russians. You know, the Russian generals only have one gun per guy. So they're like, you get a gun and you get a bullet. You get a gun and you get bullets. You get a gun and you get bullets. And they basically tell him, when the guy with the gun goes down, you pick his gun up and you keep fighting. And it's horrific, man. And it's and of course the Germans are at a place of, you know, high advantage, and they're just mowing these young Russians down. And there are some Russians who are scared and they turn back, and the generals are like, nope, nope, nope. Deserters are cowards and they will die. So on the one end, you're getting mown down by Nazis, and if you're too scared and you turn back, your general will shoot you right in the face. The Russian general is shooting him right in the face. So it is like the ultimate, like, rock in a hard place situation, and it is brutal, it is gnarly, it is scary, it is exactly what you want from a World War II drama. It is, you know, if Saving Private Ryan is the gold standard, right? We all know that opening on D-Day is like one of the best war scenes of all time. I'm not smart enough to say that like the opening Stalingrad of Enemy at the Gates needs to be in that conversation, but if you like that, watch Enemy at the Gates. It is an amazing opening to a movie. And then of course things slow down and they pick back up. This movie is really, really fun. It's really, really good. We've got good performances all around. You can't really go wrong with a scary Nazi general who's hunting down your main character. That's never going to be a recipe for anything other than awesome. So Enemy at the Gates is a lot of fun. I'm glad that I own it now. If you are a fan of World War II dramas, if you like Saving Private Ryan, if you like, I don't know, some of the other ones, I can't think of them off the top of my head, you got to check out Enemy at the Gates. It's a great entry in that genre. And there you have it. I think that'll do us up. We talked about The Running Man 2025. We talked about Apocalypto. And we talked about Enemy at the Gates. Yeah, I think I'll go ahead and put a bow on it. See you guys next time.